So, right, children with special educational needs, do they get a fair deal? 0500 909 693. We are at Bromston Primary School. Is that what you want to do, when you grow up? Hold microphones, yeah? Don't just nod. You've got to speak. Like you were speaking to me a minute ago, into the microphone, like that, so everyone can hear you.
Yeah.
You said you got a pen like this, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it like, your pen, then?
It's just like that. It's just that it's blue and it's my handwriting pen.
Your handwriting pen? So, what do you think of my handwriting? Can you read any of that?
No.
Can you read that? That's the telephone number. Is that?
Yes, I can read that.
Go on then, read it out loud.
0500909.
That's the one. That's the number we want you to call us on. And we are talking about the challenges now, the challenges in the future for schools, parents, getting the proper provision for children with special educational needs, the provision that they deserve. And Nigel, thank you so much for having us here this morning.
It's a pleasure.
We've had a massive response. There was a bit of a radio moment earlier on when you were talking to us about and expressing your passion. We're going to hear it again in case anyone didn't. This was Nigel talking earlier on.
It's wearing me down. It's worn me out. And it's got to the point where I'm going to have to stop for a while. I want to be back because I love this job. And
so you're leaving. You're going to do something else.
Yeah, I'm going to work for at least 2 charities that have been interested in me working with them. One parent special needs charity, and I'm a trustee for the Alliance for Inclusive Education, and we're looking to see how I can work more. But
so leaving the school is going to be a massive wrench for you. But you feel you have no alternative.
It's been I gave an assembly to the children yesterday, and part of the assembly was looking at Rosa Parks and how she sat on the bus and wouldn't let people. Wasn't content to allow black people and white people to be separated anymore.
Inspiring story.
And that's the point where I've got to. Enough is enough. Someone's got to turn around and say, I'm not willing to do this anymore in this way.
And the changes are only going to make it worse, you believe?
I think that all of the changes are making it worse constantly. I'm measured not on how brilliant Joshua's life is, but on how he performs in a test at the age of 11. And that's just disgusting. Well,
what a response we got, and loads of people are calling. Nigel is here, Roger Goff is here, Conservative member of the Council, is that right? And we have also got Danielle, and we've got Sarah, who works with this organisation here. Let me just think of the name of it, the Kent Parent Carer Forum. It's done a very interesting survey as well, which we'll come to later on. We've got Anna from the National Autistic Association. Society. And we've got Donna, I've got Mum Donna, and we have got Debs, and, well, Julie, I haven't met you before, you're a new addition. Nice to meet you. So let's speak to Anita in Derbyshire, and we've got Gemma in Surrey and Jason in West Yorkshire. Good morning to all of you, thanks for getting in touch.
Good morning.
Anita, you go first, because I think you reacted very strongly to what we heard from Nigel earlier on, and what we've been hearing all morning.
I did, because I recognised in Nigel myself a number of years ago. I was head of a special needs school, and it was at the time of introduction of national curriculum. It was an all-age school, very successful school. I was passionate about the needs of the children, and I found myself one day, amongst all the pressures, trying to tell a minion in education department in London why my 14-year-olds couldn't do 12 pieces of written work, and these were children with very severe needs. And I went home and I cried, and I was where Nigel is now. And I just wanted to say to Nigel, go for what you're thinking of doing, because there is a life after school. I actually had some help to look at my career in terms of all the things that had been successful and to close that chapter, as it were. And I went on to run a business for 15 years helping disabled young people get work. That also was very successful, outstanding with Ofsted inspection, and was very rewarding. But it was a year before I could go back into the school building, I have to say. So go for it, Nigel. You've got a huge number of skills, and they're very valuable in the outside world.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I had a tweet last night from Vic Goddard, who's head teacher, sort of educating Essex head teacher, and he's sort of
desperately sad that I'm leaving. But I tweeted him back, I'm not dead. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still around. I'm just going to be fighting from a different point of view.
But you feel you're pushing a boulder up a hill here. Won't you be pushing a different boulder up?
That's the polite way of putting it, yes.
Won't you be... Well, we are on the radio.
We are.
Won't you be pushing a different boulder up a different hill?
No, it's the same boulder. And actually, the boulder is international.
Yeah.
Pasi Salberg in Finland. Finland have got a lot of things a lot better than we have. And one of the things he calls it the GERM, the Global Education Reform Movement. And it's just this obsession with testing children and competing schools and measuring what can be measured. But you can't measure the important things in a school. Parents can. If the Tories really believe what they said, they would let the free market decide about schools. And my school has doubled in size since I came here. We had 18 children in reception when I first arrived. We had 90 this year and last year. Now, that says a lot about this school. People are passionate about coming to this school for all the right reasons. And to have Ofsted come in like they did last time with the wrong statistics, and it was an absolutely shambolic...
It's not just this government. Ofsted have been around for a while, we have to say. And, there have been criticisms of the system predating this particular government. It behoves me to say, but your point, I'm sure, is taken. Do you want to come back, Anita?
Oh, there's so much, really. I mean, just to say to Nigel, keep your passion about the children, because in the end, that's all that matters. And, the politicians, it takes them a long, long time to see what's really necessary. Parents have a much better idea than the politicians.
Here's Gemma in Surrey. Thank you so much. And Jason in West Yorkshire. Jason, you go next.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make a point, probably more of a rounded point on this area, that I think children with special needs need special help, and they need to have special funding to achieve that help. But I think also what we need to bear in mind is that a lot of schools don't have the actual facilities or the funding to look after the children that need this help. And if a child doesn't get one-to-one care and have an additional person to look after them, teachers can struggle. And so what can happen is that 2 or 3 children may not even maybe be slightly disruptive, or 1 or 2 who are very disruptive go into a class and the teacher can't cope. And so what then happens is that the children who are bright and want to get pushed on can't get pushed on because the teacher's spending a lot of time focusing on the child or the children who need that help. And if you get maybe 2 or 3 children who need additional help without the right funding and the facilities in the school, it makes that particular year very difficult for the teacher. And what I would say is that, obviously teachers get assessed on how the children move forward. It's a very kind of clinical, numbers-based sort of system, and it doesn't really take in the round picture, and so they're going to put under a lot of pressure, and the children that could achieve and could be pushed on don't, and the children that should get all the extra help don't get it either. So it's this catch-22. It's not just about the special needs children, it's about the able children in the class as well.
Who wants to... Aya's got the microphone. Who wants to... You can decide, Aya, who wants to address that particular point, looking round. Anna?
I just wanted to say that having worked in schools previously, often where it's seen as disruptive behaviour of 1 or 2 children... the teachers might not necessarily need to spend an awful lot of time helping them if they've had the correct training in a range of disabilities. And I found that...
Or indeed just have the correct instincts.
That's right, yeah. And it really doesn't take a lot. For a lot of children with autism are seen as disruptive and are excluded an awful lot within mainstream schools where there hasn't been correct autism training, and that can be avoided if the teachers have had that training and know how to adapt their communication, which also brings down those disruptive behaviours. That's the importance of training, I think, across mainstream.
Jason?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, but also it's to do with... I think there's also a funding issue there as well, making sure they have the right care, maybe additional teaching assistants within the class. Sometimes parents don't want their children to be assessed for special needs as well, and that can cause problems within schools. So,
that's interesting, Nigel. Let me just throw that tonight. Sometimes parents don't want their children to be assessed for special needs.
Well, I get that, because we live in a society where being disabled is still sort of puts you as a lower member of society. I've got friends who are disabled who are having real serious problems at the moment with the changes to the benefit system for disabled people. So why on earth would you want your child to be labelled disabled? I totally get why parents don't want those labels. I have to convince them, for the reasons that we've been talking about, that to get the funding you need the label. So I say, look, I don't care about labels, but your child needs a label so that we can get the funding, so that we can get the support that they need into the school. But I mean, it's not all about funding. The funding is important. I'm never going to say it isn't, but it's about the ethos of the school. I mean, I had a parent come to see me the other day. Their academy had told them, we cannot meet your child's needs. You'll have to go and look at Bromstone because they're so much better with these things. Their child's special need was dyslexia. Now, that is illegal. Schools have to meet the needs of the children. It's a legal requirement. And to be told that is just shocking.
Who wants to jump in? Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, we get the same. Parents have said to us that there is not enough support for diagnosis, for conditions that haven't got a diagnosis, like dyslexia, that you don't get a statement or you don't get help for it. Those children suffer the most because they often sit in a classroom and struggle. And a lot of children with special needs are not taught by qualified teachers. They get support staff that haven't got the qualifications.
There must be borderline cases as well.
There are, and and we've had families say to us that accepting a diagnosis is a real emotional journey for them. They're struggling in themselves to understand their children. To then be told there's a problem with their child, there's no support and there's no help for the families going through that journey either.
So, Gemma, we will come to you after we have... Are you there right now, Gemma, just to check your... Excellent. We'll come to you in just a moment or two. It's 9:18.
This is 5 Live Breakfast.
Well, taking a look at the travel news. First of all, problems with the M25. Clockwise, before junction 28, there was a vehicle fire a little earlier on. All lanes opened at 8:30. Still looking very busy, though, back to the M11 at junction 27. Anti-clockwise, between junction 24 and junction 23 for the A1M. An earlier accident on that stretch has left things very busy back to Waltham Abbey at junction 26. West Sussex and the M23 at junction 10 at Crawley. There's a breakdown partially blocking the exit slip. The congestion back on the carriageways very heavy back to junction 10A. Heading north on the M3 in Hampshire between junction 14 for the M27 and junction 13 at Chandler's Ford. Still slow on that stretch, but the accident has been moved to the hard shoulder. Edmonton, the A406 North Circular westbound after the A10. Emergency repair work now going on after an accident. One lane closed. Traffic very stop-start back past the M11 to Redbridge roundabout. And in fact, all the routes heading into London and around London looking very busy at the moment because of the tube strike. The A13 westbound particularly bad from Wellington, as is the A40 from the M40. In fact, the end of the M40 you'll find yourself queuing as well from about junction 2. The A3 in Roehampton looking very slow, as is the A2 from Blackheath. And as far as the tube strike goes, for any information on all the services which are actually running today, go to tfl.gov.uk. But as I say, do expect busy buses and busy roads. Michelle Dignan, 5 Live Travel.
Wake Up to Money on 5 Live.
What's going to be the best thing about the new Wake Up to Money?
Well, being able to cram more things in, getting a bit more time to dwell on things. The whole point of this extra 15 minutes is that we'll be able to focus a little bit more, and it won't feel like a gallop, more of a leisurely canter.
And when we get some of those big bosses, those opinion formers, the great news is we're going to have 10 minutes to sit down and really grill them, really get into what are their opinions, why do they make these decisions that can change the country, really. We don't always ask all the right questions, do we? But we do have listeners who keep us on our toes.
More Wake Up to Money.
The magic of Wake Up to Money is that we pitch it at everybody, not just the top few.
Weekday mornings from 5:15 on 5 Live.
Do children with special educational needs get a fair deal? We've got some fantastic people to talk about it here at the school here in Broadstairs, but also on the phones. And Gemma, sorry to keep you waiting. We will also come to Sue in Wolverhampton and Heidi in Cheshire. Gemma, what would you like to say?
My two went through the education system in the old ways, and it was a constant battle, as you've heard. My two have dyspraxia, severe speech and language. My son came to our local church school, and we were told within 3 months they wanted him out because they couldn't meet his needs. Well, hang on a minute. You're a Christian school. Why the flaming hell you knew what he was like. You have a special needs unit. You should be able to help him.
I thought you would have thought the ethos. Battle. You would have thought the ethos of a school like that.
We don't know. It was a constant fight. We live in one sort of health area, which was in a separate area to the schools that they eventually went to for their secondary education. So constantly going over to Leatherhead, constantly having meetings, constantly OK, I knew what was supposed to happen. So when things didn't happen, I could say, hang on a minute. But why should I? You know, as I think Debbie and Donna said earlier, why should they constantly have to fight for the information? The information, this is what your child has got. This is what the needs. This is how we could meet their needs, either in education or health or social services. We were victims of antisocial behaviour for 4 or 5 years, partly, I think, because James and Claire have disabilities and also because their schooling was not in the locality. So we stuck out like a sore thumb.
Roger Gough, do you want to come in here? I haven't heard from you yet, Conservative member of the Council. What's your exact position, Roger?
I'm the Cabinet Member for Education.
Right. This is why you're here.
Indeed. So I think what we hear a lot of is a description in many ways of where we have been with the system, and I think what we're trying to achieve with these changes, and as I say, it's a national change, but we've been a pathfinder on this, so we've been in the vanguard trying to take this forward, is above all that this system should be more responsive to families, that they are more deeply involved. I'll give you an example. One of the things that we are doing is, as we are building new primary schools, in many of them we are establishing patterns of provision for special educational needs in those new schools. Mm-hmm. We are ensuring that we have parents and families on the steering groups taking those sort of units forward.
And
so
hopefully you think that will change attitudes.
Well, I think it is about changing attitudes, and it's actually about the professionals changing. I think the professionals certainly do, in many cases, an outstanding job, but need to be more responsive to the families, and that is exactly what these changes are about. That's what we're seeking to lead on. Yeah.
Have you seen someone else wants to talk here with your microphone? You just pointed. Oh, you were saying hi. Okay, right. Is that your brother? Yeah. Oh, I thought it was a resemblance. Who wants to... Debs.
No, I'm answering both comments there. I mean, as a parent who's gone through sort of 3 lots of statements and having to get children into different schools, and I totally understand the anxiety and the stress that comes from that. As a really strong, outspoken mum, myself, 3 years ago, I ended up on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication and sleeping tablets because it all got too much for me. And I was where Nigel is this morning, and I just couldn't. I sat in my GP's and I sobbed for over an hour because I just couldn't do it anymore. I was so fed up of fighting, and I was fed up of being made to feel like the neurotic mother. And so everything that Roger's saying, it isn't about the system that existed a long time ago. This was a couple of years ago. I was in this position. It's a constant battle, and they're racing ahead with these changes. They're coming in September, and the Pathfinders haven't finished yet, so they've not even reported fully on what's happening in the changes. So my child's going to be a guinea pig for a system that may not work. And hopefully, if the ideas of having it as a person-centred with one-page profiles and all of those things actually came into fruition, but they're not going to come into fruition in September.
OK, let me... I know you want to talk, Danielle, but let me speak to Sue in Wolverhampton and Heidi in Cheshire. Heidi, good morning.
Good morning. Hi. I come at this, Nikki, from 2 different angles. My child has Down syndrome, and she's in Year 6 at a mainstream primary school in Cheshire. But I'm also a special educational needs link governor at that particular primary school. So I'm looking at the changes that are coming into schools with some concern. And we're also at a critical time for my daughter because she's transferring into high school in September. So
What's
she's
her name?
leaving. Her name's Ava.
Ava.
And she's very fortunate. She's been very well supported, very well included at her mainstream primary school. The staff there have always sought to include her. She's just been on a school residential for 3 days with all the other kids, very well supported. And they came back and she'd done everything. She'd been on the climbing wall, she'd been canoeing, she was very, very well included. So I do come at this from 2 different angles. The thing that really worries me is the provision is so patchy, and I keep hearing parents talking about the battle, scratching around trying to find information, and that is absolutely my experience. I'm also concerned that schools are finding out about these changes way too late. Local authorities are getting information into schools about the funding changes way too late. Schools are trying to set their budgets not knowing how much money they've got in the pot to employ TAs. The whole thing seems like a continuation of the woolliness that's gone before. There doesn't seem to be any clarity around what sort of provision is going to be provided. And I'll echo what the lady said before. I feel like our children are guinea pigs. Going into high school, having been really well included, we went to see our local high school, a mainstream high school, for our daughter to start there in September. The first question the special educational needs coordinator asked us when we walked through the doors was, why isn't she going to a special school? And that broke my heart, because she's been so well included and so well supported, and she has absolutely flourished in her current mainstream setting.
And she's happy.
And very happy. And the other thing is the impact that she has on her peer group is absolutely amazing. The kids that she's been with for 6 years are caring, they're supportive, they give her time, they're proud of her achievements. You know, when she manages to run a race on sports day, even though she's always last, they cheer her. You can see their pride in how well their friend is doing, and it does break my heart that you've got this fantastic provision that, as far as I can see, in September is coming to an end.
Well, that is a point actually we haven't, Nigel, I think fully addressed. How having children with special needs. I mean, Ava sounds like a wonderful example. Is good for everyone.
Absolutely. I was doing some training once, and there was an outstanding head teacher from a church school, incidentally. And she suddenly bursted out in the middle of the training and said, "I've seen a child with Down syndrome destroy a school." I said, wow, that was a powerful child, wasn't it? Because the children with Down syndrome at my school, we had some children with...
What does she mean?
Well, it's if you have this rigid view that your job is to get children through SATs, then a little child with Down syndrome is likely to mess that up a little bit. Now, in my school, when the children were doing their dance the other day, children were at the front performing their dance, and our little girl with Down syndrome was at the back dancing away, and everyone turned around and gave her a clap as well. Now, that's just a joyous thing to see. What a great way to start a morning. Now, if you deny that child the right to go to their local school, which these new reforms are going to do, because under these new reforms, at the moment, if you want to send a child to special school, they need a statement. Under the new changes, they don't need a statement anymore. And we've already got academies which are setting up little units, segregated units for the children with special educational needs. They're putting them in there without even telling the parents. The parents don't even know they're there. People need to know that something very, very bad is happening in our society.
Roger?
I think that with a combination of different provision for those with different needs is what we're looking at. So there is a place for special schools, and we have actually a very good system of special schools in Kent, and we're proud of it. There is also a place for units within mainstream schools, and also support for inclusion in mainstream schools. One of the big things we're doing...
There's a race for results.
Well, I totally disagree with Roger on this, because, I'm sure he knows that my view is I chair a national body for heading for inclusion. I think every child should go to their local school, full stop. Put all those resources that are currently going into special schools, put them in mainstream schools. I've got all sorts of different provisions around my school. They're here. The children are all here. They're all together. They're working together. And where the children can be together, they are.
Okay.
Where they can't, they're not. Martin's son yesterday came and had lunch in my room because it was too much for him to sit in the school in the school hall with 200 children having lunch, so he came and sat with me.
We're going to speak to Martin soon. We're going to also speak to those who've not been able to contribute, but who will. Sue in Wolverhampton.
Hello.
And others. Sue, I will come to you.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
That was a great mix. More from Assembly here at Bromston Primary School. Children with special educational needs, are they getting a fair deal? We're going to speak to Mike in Bristol and soon Wolverhampton, and we also have got Rob Buckland, the Conservative MP, to talk to. Hello, Mr. Buckland.
Hello, hi, Vicky.
Hi, Ed, thanks for coming on. Sue, you've been waiting for ages. What do you want to say?
I know. Well, I think that, these changes, they're not going to do anything to better our children's future. They're just crossing the I's and dotting the T's. And to be honest with you, if you're getting agencies involved, some of these agencies, with the best will in the world, don't have the expertise they need. Because I've had this problem with my son, I mean, he's now in secondary school in a resource base in a mainstream school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just get the impression that every review we go to, all they're interested in is targets, 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 targets. They're not interested in the well-being of the child. My son doesn't even feel confident enough to tell the teachers that that he's struggling. He's got support and everything. Well, that's all very well and good. But if some of these people aren't trained in dealing with the needs of the child, it doesn't work in ways. Because, I mean, as well as being a teenager, he's also got the dual sensory loss of sight and hearing to contend with. And I just feel that if they don't fit the boxes, then they're out on a limb. And I have to commend Nigel. I feel so ashamed that he has to go, because it's people like Nigel who are trying to fight the cause for these children that I commend. And the government are just putting austerity before the well-being of our children.
Well, we've got Rob Buckland to talk to, Sue, and maybe you can talk to him yourself and ask him a question. Rob, remind us of your involvement in this and your interests in this, please.
Yeah, well, Nicky, I'm a parent of a child with SEN myself, so I've sort of lived the experience through the years that we've watched her growing up. And as a result of my own experiences, I then set up a local network for parents in my area in Swindon. And since election in 2010, I've been involved with the all-party group on autism and took a particular interest in the Children and Families Bill going through Parliament. And I was particularly keen to make sure that youngsters who have disabilities but may not have a statement of special educational needs were also included in this, because one of the problems
there are a lot of concerns about it, though, as you perhaps have been hearing.
Yeah, I think, look, this is a really important step forward, and the main disability charities, the organisations I work with, all welcome this bill. This is good news for all of us. The question is how we get it implemented, and it's got to be wide, because there's a lot of youngsters out there who don't get currently a statement of SEN, a statement of special educational needs, but who have some form of disability, and they don't, as the lady was saying, they don't necessarily fit into any box. And we need to move away from this, box-filling, box-ticking culture into a system that is genuinely centred around the child and their needs. Now,
okay, Sue, that's what they're seeking to.
But they're not. I don't see how now they're just covering over the flaws of the current system. My child is statemented, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just paper. Because while the ethos at his primary school is excellent, and it had a really good reputation, and I didn't have much complaint. Well, now he's in the secondary school, which is got the same resource base. It just doesn't seem that professionals and agencies and that this is what they want, parent power. Well, we might as well be talking to the brick wall when we talk to these people, because half of them don't understand what you're trying to get over, and they just say, oh, well, he's doing okay. But you want the best for your child. You want them to be pushed a little bit further. I know he's not going to be A1, top of the charts with everything. Nobody ever is. But there are things that they can do, and they shouldn't be bracketed as being, oh, Mr. Average, fine, get along, he'll manage. And then when their transition is, he's doing his GCSEs next year, and to be quite frank with you, I'm quite concerned about how he's going to manage them.
Go on, Robert Buckland. Let Robert Buckland come back.
These are really powerful points because, parents are the greatest experts on their child. They know more about their child than anybody else, and they should be fully involved in the decision-making process. And the young lad is about to do his GCSEs. So as a parent, I'd want to know what special adjustments are going to be made to make sure that he can do his exams in the best possible way with the best possible support. And the transition period that was mentioned is so important. When we go through, I'm just about to go through with my daughter the transition to secondary, and I'm worried and I'm apprehensive about how that's going to go. And I'm going to take, and my wife and I take a special interest in how the system is going to manage that transition, because if it goes wrong, it can really set back a child's progress by months, if not years.
Danielle, while we've got Robert Buckland, who understands this issue because of his own experience on the phone, what would you like to say to him?
I think that there's been a lot of negativity about the reforms, and the present the present system, in many cases, has proved not fit for purpose. So I welcome these reforms.
Are you cautiously optimistic, or very optimistic, or quite optimistic?
Quite optimistic. Yeah. There's got to be a big shift in culture between professionals and parents. Yeah. The willingness is there, and what we've seen with Kent is that they are willing to work with parents and engage parents, and it will be difficult, there will be teething problems, but in the long run I do believe that the new system is going to be better, and I think parents should not be quite so scared of it.
And Headmaster here, Nigel Hutton, have a word with Robert Buckland.
Yeah, and one of my biggest concerns about this is I can't see the change. I can't see where the change is, because there is no obligation on health and social care to actually engage with this process at all. We set up meetings regularly at school and invite health and social care, and they don't come. And under the new system, you haven't made it compulsory for them to come, so they won't come because they're busy.
Well, there's a statutory duty on CCGs and indeed on social care as well.
What's a CCG?
So that's the local health body does have a statutory duty, and there's a duty to jointly commission services as well. So
that's jointly commissioned services. That isn't actually support the child.
Yeah, but no, there are statutory duties, and the important thing is with different local authorities you get different approaches. So in Swindon, for example, you do get that partnership working. That doesn't seem to be happening in your case, and I share your frustration about that. It's a waste of resources, it's a misuse of resources. If you as a head teacher and your team are not being able to work with those other parts of the system that need to come together around the child. Now, the whole
so how's that going to change with the education, health and care plans?
Because we've got there's the duties on social care, there's the duty with regard to the CCG specifically, and then of course there's the duty which has been moved on from the statement. So we've got that joint approach, and I think that therefore it's incumbent upon local authorities and local health authorities to all come together now to share their resources and work in a more effective way. It's happening in certain parts of the country already.
Debs is not happy with what you've just said.
I'm sorry, I'm sat listening to this and thinking, where does it say in the legislation that they have to work actually together for the actual individual child? There is nothing there that says if you set up a meeting with education, health and care in the same room, which we currently try to do, that they have to attend those meetings, and it has to be somebody who can make a decision at that time for the child. It isn't in there. I don't know what legislation you're looking at, but it must be different to what I'm looking at.
But look at the Code of Practice. That's the key document that's being formulated now. That's going to be a really important...
We haven't seen the Code of Practice.
Yeah, it's still
and we've got
draft.
to implement it in September.
Okay,
well,
unbelievable.
The Code of Practice hasn't been published yet, and it's to be finalised. And I think it's really important that we all...
Yeah, but you expect my school to put that in place in September, and they haven't even seen it. That leaves us about 2 months to do something. It hasn't even finished consultation. You're rushing through another piece of legislation, and this is a really important one, because this is going to affect children's lives.
Yeah, but we're not rushing, because we had a Green Paper 3 years ago. The legislation took over a year to come through. It's been worked through very slowly, in fact. And I accept your point about September and the concerns, which is why I'm pressing the Minister to make sure that we get the Code of Practice as early as possible so that professionals in the field can actually digest it.
What, in the middle of the summer holidays, like you usually do?
Well, it's not me. I'm a backbencher. I'm pressing the government to make sure that
you're part of the government.
Well, I'm not. But I'm trying to press the government to make sure that we get the Code of Practice out as early as possible, because I take your point.
But the Code of Practice was initially consulted on last October, and the results of that should have been published within 12 weeks of it closing, and it didn't. And they literally, last week, in the Easter holidays, they decided to very quietly publish a further consultation.
Yes.
And with the amount of holidays that parents were on and bank holidays, they've given us 11 working days to respond to it.
Martin wants a word as well. Martin's got two children with autism. We spoke to him earlier on. We've got Robert Buckland there, who's taken not from Danielle, but taking a little bit of flack. He's not a member of the government. He's a parent as well, of a child with special education needs.
The reforms, I have to admit, I have not had a chance to look into them in any depth. But generally, when I hear those noises such as we spoke to parents and we're giving parents power, I just hear, they're cuts. So what you're doing is you're giving parents power over a reduced service. And I have empirical evidence. In the last 3 years, there's been a pattern of diminishing the resources for special needs education.
Is that the case, Robert Buckland?
Well, it depends on where you are in the country, I think, because local authorities have the decision-making power to put priority on different services. I think it's a patchy system, and I think the problem is that if you're a parent and you're moving around the country with work or whatever, you can't be sure that the sort of service you might have enjoyed in one part of the country is going to be the same in the other part of the country, and that's something that has to change, which is why the local offer that's part of the reforms has to be a meaningful process, has to actually give parents real information and a real sense of choice, if you like, about the services on offer, and also hold authorities to account where they're not providing the sort of services that young children and young people need.
OK, we take the travel news. We'll have to go some calls as well. We'll have to tell people what's happening on the roads. But Robert Butler, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Pleasure.
We had hoped to speak to the Minister, Edward Timpson, but he pulled out at the last moment. It's 10 minutes to 10 o'clock.
This is 5 Live Breakfast.
Well, taking a look at the motorways, in Newport, the M4 westbound at junction 28 for Tredegar Park. Because of an accident earlier on the exit slip, congestion goes back on the main carriageway to High Cross at junction 27. The M25, now a couple of the earlier problems have cleared up. However, anti-clockwise from junction 14 at Heathrow to 13 at Staines. One lane still closed because of an accident which is causing queuing traffic. There's a very large stretch on the clockwise side which is very slow. It's from junction 11 at Chertsey up to junction 16 where it meets the M40. Now the M40 southbound also very busy from junction 2 at Beaconsfield to junction 1 for the A40, and this is all because of problems on the A40 heading into London. Because of the tube strike, extra delays on this road, so from Denham to the northern roundabout, White City, then through Marylebone and into the King's Cross area. So the A40 very busy, as are a lot of the routes actually into and around London, especially the A13 from Wennington, also the A3 in Roehampton, the A2 westbound from Blackheath as well, all looking slow. For a full update on everything going on with the tube strike, tfl.gov.uk is a good place to go. It has a list on there of the services which are actually running today. Now elsewhere, the M23 at junction 10 at Crawley, because of an earlier breakdown, traffic still looking a little slow on the approach there. In Nottinghamshire, Elston, the A46 northbound is closed at Longhedge Lane. That's because of an accident. And just a quick word on the A406 North Circular westbound after the A10. Emergency repair work still going on, so one lane closed with congestion back to the Crooked Billet interchange. Michelle Dignan, 5 Live Travel.
We were with you through the good times.
And it's Hurst and Ball shouting for it on the right here. And there's people on the pitch at the moment. It's a goal by Hurst.
We were with you through the bad times.
Chris Waddle has to put this penalty in the net. Waddle has ballooned it over the bar.
We were with you when it mattered.
Here comes Beckham and scores! England 1, Argentina 0. And we'll be with you in Brazil.
With you for over 50 years of football. BBC Radio, where World Cup memories are made.
Right, calls. Let's hear from Lynn in Sittingbourne and Mike in Bristol. Thanks for hanging on. Lynn, you go first. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I would just like to see, as a parent, a lot more acceptance of these children. I feel within the school setting that there clearly is not. We've had a 15-month battle with the school, with my own son, and purely it was all about acceptance. He wasn't accepted. His disability with autism and his difficulties was seen as naughty behaviour and disruptive behaviour. And now my son has been medically signed off from school by a psychiatrist due to stress and an emotional disorder, and now he's currently at home with no educational provision.
Right, stay there. Let's hear from Mike as well. Hello, Mike.
Good morning, Nikki. Just based on our experiences as parents of a child with SEN, we're through the other side now, but from our experience, we found the whole process actually quite intimidating, tortuous. We actually found the system itself, it did discriminate against parents. And I say that for an obvious reason, is you need to present a very strong case. Now, the way you do that is we had to prepare reports. You had to commission your own report.
Mum, and I've done all of that. I'm a very proactive mum, and I have spoken for my son and supported the school in every way possible.
I'm not challenging what you're saying in any way, shape or form. What I'm saying
go on, Mike.
If you don't have the resources to commission the reports, i.e. the funds to commission independent reports, it's very difficult to get out the blocks. And you do need that. You do need professional help. So you need reports, you need solicitors, you need people who are familiar with the system itself. The system itself is just absolutely brutal. It's a very complex system to understand, and it's full of people telling you what you can't have.
Might the system get better? Do you think the system might get better?
I hope so. We came to an arrangement with our local education authority. Our circumstances are quite different, and they were in a position where we think they would find it very difficult to actually go through the entire tribunal process. And we sat down with them, we reasoned with them, with the professional help that we had to fund ourselves, and then they realised, actually, do you know what? It would make more sense. They took a commercial view that rather than commit to a full statement, which is going to cost them X amount of pounds, they said, well, actually, if we're reasonable about this, we sit down and be adult about this, less confrontational, less bullying, less intimidation, we can reach a sensible decision that everybody's happy with. But from the outset, we had somebody from the local education authority sit in our lounge and just sit there and just look us straight in the eyes and say, listen, Sunshine, there's no way you're going to get what you're after. And you know what? We challenged them. We took on this professional advice. We paid for it. And we did get what we wanted. And
there we are. That's what we were saying earlier on. It's about navigating the system. Allow me to go to Millie in Kent, who's just called. Hello, Millie.
Hi.
Hi there. What would you like to say on the radio?
I was just calling because I've recently come out of secondary education. I'm now in university, but having been at education, I'm an epileptic.
Mm-hmm.
So whilst I know that the plan now is the idea to kind of make sure that schools, the education system and doctors work together to make a care plan, whereas from my experience, that was never put in place. And actually, I don't think my school maybe understood epilepsy as well as they should have. So often if I had a seizure, which I only ever have absent seizures, so they last about a minute and I can actually carry on my day. But if I had one, particularly in lessons, I used to get sent to the medical centre, and then it was like off-home Millie, which around my GCSEs and around actually all my education, that was very traumatic from a point of view of friends maybe thinking that you're just getting time off to get time off, as well as actually needed time that I should have been in education. I was sitting at home where I actually could have been sat in the lessons that I was missing. So had I maybe had that care plan and that understanding, maybe they would have understood epilepsy more. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, so you're very positive about it, and that's a key point, isn't it? Individuals in schools in general, understanding different people, different needs, different conditions, if that's the right word. We haven't got a lot of time left. We've just got about 2 minutes, so it's going to be very, very quick. Julie, you haven't spoken yet. Understanding the process. We heard from Mike there. Understanding your way through it. It's a maze, isn't it?
It is a maze, and it always is with everything, all the evaluations you have, and a stranger comes into the room with your child that they've never seen before, and then your child's quoted on that occasion, how they performed in that 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But here we've got Supermum Debs, who looks after her 3 children and knows all the politics and everything, and absolutely hats off to you. I, however, don't have a great big hands in the politics of it all, and unbeknown to me, before this radio show I was invited onto here, I didn't really know anything about this, and I think that's a really important point, because there will be parents in September, if this carries on and goes through, that yet again might find this too much responsibility to take on. We already have a lot to think about in our daily lives, feeding our children, bathing our children, looking after our children's mental and physical well-being. And I don't think this is a necessary change. I believe that we just need to have more dialogue, natural dialogue between the professionals and the parents anyway. I think this is a guise how to save money from the government to what's happening at the moment, how it is at the moment. It's just a money-saving scheme,
Julie,
and it's a guise.
We've got about 30 seconds, rather less because I'm speaking too much. Deb, Supermum, last word, 15 seconds. Go on.
I really wish I was Supermum, I really did. Make my life a lot easier.
15 seconds means 15 seconds.
Okay, local offer is a framework. It is a standard framework. It is not a minimum standards. That means that if it does go around the country, it will still change. You can't actually challenge a framework. There's nothing in there in the legislation to say what has to be in there.
Thank you, you did it. Supermum, super broadcaster, the whole package. Thank you, Nigel, for having us. Hopefully people have learned something. I certainly have.